Going on, everyone? This is a time when I hit live, go live, but I can never tell if I'm actually live. Okay, I think we're probably live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this kind of special edition of the Rokoko Office Hours. I'm Sam, the creative director for Rokoko, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. Normally, we are more interactive and we do something creative. Today, I'm going to be kind of just giving a presentation. One thing that I've always wanted to have is to be able to point to a video that really, for people who are just entering motion capture, to like describe the entire state, talk about what MOCAP is, talk about the problems, talk about all the different types of motion capture, the limitations and the advantages of each brand, of each workflow. And that's going to be this video. So I'm not going to be looking at comments. I'm going to try not to get distracted and rambly, although I'm sure I will. And I'm going to try to have this be a real information dump. And then at the end of the video, I will be jumping in the suit to basically do just a demo to show you how Rokoko works. But I kind of, and I'll be, and put your questions in the chat and we're going to go through them at the end. But this is going to be just me kind of talking about motion capture, looking at the different types, and I'll also say, this is based on partially my opinion, because it is all opinion based at the end of the day, and also my experience working in this industry in motion capture for many years, seeing a lot of the top people's workflows and kind of my impressions and my lessons learned. So, I even got a little contents here. So that's going to be the run of show. We're going to talk about all the different MOCAP types, advantages, disadvantages, workflows, myths that are out there, and then we're going to do a demo. And we're going to be answering questions as they come up. So hey, everyone in the chat, and let's do this thing. So let's start with who I am. My name is Sam Lazarus. Again, I work for Rokoko. I am an editor. I've been working in visual media for a long time. I've been working in CG for a long time. Before I worked for Rokoko, I was a CG generalist freelancer, MoGraph freelancer in Cinema 4D. So that is my background, and that's kind of where I came to motion capture from, right, as a generalist. And with Rokoko, and this is not true for all the MoCap solutions, but for Rokoko, we are trying to solve indie creator problems, right? That's kind of our target audience. So I was one of those people. I was a generalist, and I bought a Rokoko suit on my own. And Rokoko was so small at that point, this was in 2018, that they reached out and they needed a video person, and so I ended up working for them. But also, I ended up having a great experience with Rokoko. It was one of the only CG things in the CG world, whether it's a plugin or a software, whatever it is, nothing ever goes smoothly. And Rokoko MoCap has its problems too, but it was a remarkably simple thing for me to jump in and start making motion capture. But I think the important thing is I try to approach this as the consumer, right? And I am very much a part of this community, right? I try to do the render challenges like everyone else. I see the same things that we all do on YouTube. So that's the mindset I'm always trying to bring to this, is from the perspective of an indie creator, that's my personal background. So I think that's valuable to know going into this. And I wear a red hat all the time because Steve Zissou, Jacques Cousteau, keep exploring. Okay, let's just start with what is motion capture. And now we're gonna go to look at, so you don't just have to look at my silly face the whole time. You've probably seen images like this before, but if you don't know, motion capture is the process of capturing or recording an actor or a performer's movements and capturing them in such a way that they can then be transformed into data that can power a digital character, right? So as opposed to hand keying animation, you see a lot of Pixar movies. You see, artists who are moving bones individually to move Nemo or move whatever character it is. That's hand keying animation. It's a very difficult process, and we're going to talk about that in a second. MoCap is kind of a cheat to getting that humanoid animation, right? Because you can throw a suit on someone, you can use AI MoCap now, whatever it is, to capture a performance, which means for a generalist or an indie creator who maybe can't do hand keying, it solves a lot of problems. So that's what motion capture is. It's the process by which we capture a performer's movements and turn it into digital data, information that can be used on a digital character. That's motion capture, right? There's a lot of different ways to do this. And so what problem does motion capture solve? Hand-keyed animation Maya. Let's type that into Google and see if we can get, here, let's pull up this. Yeah. What problem does MOCAP solve? Well, it solves, here's the problem it solves. Character animation is fucking hard to do. Animation, and again, we approach motion capture, so the problem especially Rokoko is trying to solve, but I think motion capture in general is trying to solve this issue. Animation, especially character animation, is a super difficult thing to learn. It's one of the hardest, if not the hardest, of the CG siloed disciplines, in my opinion, right? Let's talk about a generalist. If you're a generalist, if you're in CG, you probably have done a little texturing. You know, you're getting your textures from Quixel. You've done a little modeling. You know, you fixed models. You know how to do some polygon, vertice cuts and line edge cuts and things. You've done a little lighting, right? You render, so you know rendering, you know lighting, and you know animating to a degree too, right? I can close a door. I can make a ball bounce. Animating. When it comes to character animation, I think it really is one of the most difficult and uniquely difficult of the CG disciplines. It requires a knowledge of anatomy. It requires a knowledge of physics. How do our bones move? How do people move? It requires a knowledge of emotion, and being able to read people. Read what's in their face, read the twitches, read, my character is feeling emotional. Well, I gotta animate their hands to be a little nervous. There's so many aspects of hand-keyed animation that it makes it one of the hardest disciplines in CG. And going against the animator as well is the whole issue of the uncanny valley. Let's type in uncanny valley. So uncanny valley is generally a term that we use to talk about how, look at this. Look at these weird things. These images, Polar Express is a famous example of an animated film where the characters looked kind of good, kind of close to real, but then not real enough. And it triggered this thing in us as humans that we're like, we can call BS on that. It looks very bizarre. And that's because we're human beings, we're social animals, and one of the things we've evolved to be really good at doing is reading and seeing and understanding and taking in other human movement, expression, emotion, right? So humans have this innate BS meter when it comes to animation because we've either been trained on how Pixar animation should look, and we have a very specific idea of how that animation should look, or we know how humans look, and we can be like, well, it takes a lot to do very good hand-keyed animation because that's all fighting you. So this is the problem that motion capture solves. It's the animation problem. It's that animation, and especially character animation, is one of the hardest things to do. And so the idea with motion capture is you can give a suit to any creator, a generalist. I was a generalist. I never ever wanted to do hand-keyed character animation. I was going to Mixamo and buying weird mocap animations I found on Unity, and I was trying to make story and character animation that way. And so being able to create custom character animation, and remember, custom character animation means custom storytelling. That is the problem that motion capture solves. Now, motion capture versus retargeting. So this is kind of, now we're going to get into one of the things I think that people do not realize when they get into the MOCAP game. And this is true of Rokoko, this is true of Xsense, this is true of Move.ai. Pick your poison. It is one thing to get your MOCAP. With Rokoko, it's really easy. You hop in a suit, you get your MOCAP, you plug in a battery, you're recording. And we'll show you at the end of this session that process. It's really easy. But once you have your MOCAP data, you enter a new realm of difficulty. Now, is it as difficult as hand keying? No, because there's a lot of good workflows for retargeting now, but I think a lot of things that the people don't realize when they get into working with motion capture, that to get the MOCAP, that's the beginning. The hard part becomes translating the MOCAP, retargeting the MOCAP to your character. And that is where we run into lots of new and exciting and fun problems to solve that can kind of knock people down, especially with Rokoko. Again, I'm going to talk from personal experience and from what I've observed. So all of this, I work for Rokoko too. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Question companies. Come on. But for me, I was like, oh, I'll hop in my suit. I created my first MOCAP take. It was so easy to do. And then I was like, okay, I got to get it on my character. And I tried, and it was so frustrating. Retargeting MOCAP. And it was so frustrating. It was difficult. I ran into lots of problems. I ran into problems retargeting. I ran into problems specific to Cinema 4D, which is the program I was working in. I ran into just lots of problems. And so I think that can be something that when people jump in for the first time, they get really discouraged because they've recorded their MOCAP and now they start having all this difficulty using it. And it's not that difficult. It's in fact, it's way easier than hand keying, again, from my experience and in my opinion. But it's not plug and play. There's no easy, this is CG, baby. There's always going to be problems. And there's problems specific to each software. There's problems specific to every character rig that you're using. It is not, we say at Rokoko, our tagline is democratize motion capture, and we have. It is super easy, but that does not necessarily mean that this is going to be a walk in the park. It's not complicated relative to other CG things, but does that mean it's just super easy? No. And I think that's something that I always want to impart to people, is that the goal with motion capture is never to get to 100%, because you never will be able to get to 100%, where you've recorded your MOCAP, it goes in your character, and that's it. Inherent to motion capture is this problem of proportional skeletons. Your skeleton, the way that you move, is based on your proportions. If I want to touch my elbow, well, somebody with longer arms than me in the same height, that's going to look different. And guess what? Your characters that you're retargeting to, they have different sized bones than you do. And so you always will have this, you want MOCAP to get you 85% of the way there, 95% of the way there, but you will never get 100% of the way there. At least not until the singularity happens, which will happen. AI is coming. In 10 years, maybe this will be true. It's not true now. It's not close to being true now. And that does not exist. There's no golden goose for motion capture. It's like CG. You should go in with your eyes open that it will be, you got to be good at teaching yourself new things. You got to learn new workflows. That's a part of MOCAP. Sometimes you don't need to edit and it looks great the first time, but this is the part of motion capture, and I think that is something that's important to talk about. So choose the best result, or don't choose the result, choose the workflow. So this is another thing that people who are jumping into motion capture for the first time, and they're looking at all the different options. They're looking at Rokoko, they're looking at XNs, they're looking at Move.ai, they're looking at Wonder Studio, right? And they're looking oftentimes at the results. And that's important, obviously. You need to have good results, right? The goal, again, is to get to 85 to 95% of the way there. You won't be able to get to 100. And if you can never get to 100, basically all of the MOCAP systems, they will all get you to 85 to 95% of the way there. They'll do it in slightly different ways, and they'll do it to slightly different degrees. XNs, which costs $8,000 more than our suit, will do it better than our suit. That should not be a surprise, right? But none of them will get you 100%. So they'll all get you to around 85 to 95% of the way there. That means that what ends up being really important is actually the workflow of each of the different systems and of each of the different types of motion capture. Because if you're an indie creator, what you have access to, whether it's price, whether it's space, whether it's other equipment, that is going to have a big impact. You know, you're alone as an indie creator. The workflow and the time, the way that you spend your time getting the MOCAP, that becomes the important thing, and not necessarily the result. Because I really honestly believe all the MOCAP systems, they're all good. Like I'm gonna give it up to all of them today. They're all good, but they have different workflows and they have different advantages and limitations. So that I think is something worth talking about too. Okay, let's keep going. Now we're gonna start talking about the different types of motion capture, and there's a couple distinct buckets, and we're gonna start with volume motion capture. So volume motion capture Marvel. Let's type in here. Let's motion capture stage. So this is a volume motion capture stage, or maybe something more like this. You might have seen images like this. Here's a good one, right? You'll see images like this of motion capture stages in big Marvel movies, and that's because they are using something called volume motion capture. Now, the way that volume motion capture works is that you get a bunch of cameras, you know, could be 6, could be 10, could be 20, could be 50, a bunch of different cameras. They all point inward at each other, right? Pointed in towards the space, and that creates a capture volume. So essentially what that means is that within that space that they're all pointed at, the cameras can track everything happening in there. And that means that you can put a marker on an actor's body, right? The classic balls on actors' bodies. These are IR tracker balls. And the cameras can track the journey of each ball through absolute space. And what that means is that you can get a super accurate motion capture result. This is I have down here, we're gonna go through the pros and cons. The pros of volume motion capture, it is the most accurate MOCAP. It is by far, it's no comparison really. If you wanna know more about volume motion capture, Matt Workman's channel is a great place to start, but that's the advantage of volume. It's incredibly accurate. And when you're paying Josh Brolin millions of dollars for his performance as Thanos, it becomes really important to really capture his performance and all of the subtlety that actor that you're paying for, because he's talented, he's got something. You want to record that perfectly. Chris whoever it is, Tom Holland, you're paying for all this Brie Larson, you're paying for her time. She's a huge movie star. It's got to be accurate. So that's why they use volume motion capture. Now, the cons of volume motion capture, it starts with price. I mean, again, Matt Workman, he made a great video that broke down an indie Vicon setup. So some of the companies that do volume motion capture, Vicon, OptiTrack, there's a bunch of others. They're all good, they all do a great job. They have differences, but they all are very expensive. Low end is like $20,000. Then it goes up to 50, 100. Then it goes up to multi-million, because some of these volumes will use like red 16K cameras as every camera in the volume. And how much does a red cost? That's 30 grand right there, right? And then you got the lenses. So volume motion capture can be incredibly expensive. It's also very difficult. Hey, you got a bunch of cameras set up. Who's syncing those cameras? How are we recording that data? There's a scratch on one of the cameras, on the lens. They all need power. They're all delicate. They all need to be unpacked. They all, it takes a lot of work to set up a volume motion capture. And while you can kind of set up a dedicated space, and usually these are dedicated spaces, right? It usually takes a real team to build these things, with the exception of Matt Workman and a couple others who are individual people. who've built their own setups that are incredible, but they're very technically impressive people. Matt Workman, Cinematic Database, I believe is his YouTube channel. So difficulty requires a big team usually. It requires a bunch of processing power. You got to bring all that data in. You got to process it and track all the balls. You have occlusion. You can run into occlusion issues. Let's say your actor puts their hands inside of a sack or backpack and is rustling around. Well, you're not going to capture the fingers because no camera can see them. So that's occlusion, when a camera cannot see what your limbs are doing. And then it's not real time, right? It requires processing, or most of them aren't real time. They can be real time virtual production stages again, but we're talking millions of dollars. Generally, they're not real time. They require some processing, is my understanding. I'm not an expert, and so feel free to correct me in the comments also. This is my perspective. So that's volume motion capture. Let's keep cruising. Inertial motion capture. So this is what we are. This is Rokoko. This is XNs. Look, we got a bunch of XNs coming up. This is perception neuron. This is when you see a thing on Reddit and it's someone who's taken a bunch of Arduino computers, look at this, and has hooked up. So the way that inertial motion capture works is that it is sensors that are distributed usually throughout a suit. Sometimes they're on straps. And each sensor can capture the rotational data of that limb. So that sensor is it's like an accelerometer in your phone. They also use magnetometers, but the sensor can tell, if this is a sensor on my forearm, it can tell how my forearm is moving, as long as it's strapped down, right? And with that rotational data, you can pipe it back to some software, and because we know what a human skeleton is, you turn on your Rokoko suit, the sensors are capturing the rotational data, that comes to Rokoko Studio. We then put it through a little algorithm software, and we reconstruct an approximation of your movements. Now, the reason I say we reconstruct an approximation, as opposed to with volume motion capture, where you have an exact tracking of what your limbs are doing, is because each sensor in inertial motion capture in Rokoko, it doesn't know where it is in space. It has no idea of where it is. All it knows is its rotation. And when you have something like that, you get clipping issues. So it's less accurate than something like volume motion capture, because again, we're taking only rotational data and we're reconstructing that. XNs is reconstructing that. Perception neuron is reconstructing that back into a kind of a guess of what you're doing. Now, one of the other things that really matters with inertial motion capture is a calibration pose. And that's because if we can tell the computer, hey, you start, let's say in our case, it's called a straight pose. And we hit calibrate, and what do? We put our hands down to the sides. And if you look on screen when we do that calibration pose, and there'll be an example at the end of the video, the digital character also does a straight pose. And that's because we're trying to match your starting movement, your starting position, with the character's starting position. And that way, if we start from the same point, all that rotational data makes sense and can come together and is all starting from the same point. So maybe that might not make sense. We can go into that more. But essentially, the pros of inertial motion capture of Rokoko, price, we are the cheapest suit. But perception neuron, XNs, they're both going to be cheaper than volume motion capture, right? So we can keep the price down a little bit. You're not using RED cameras. In our case, about $2,000, right? $2,000, which is very affordable for unlimited motion capture. Ease of use. I use my inertial motion capture suit, my Rokoko Smart Suit, by myself every single day. I'm a single operator. I just plug it into a battery and it works. That's it. There's no fiddling with cameras. It's not difficult to use. It's really easy to use. It is accurate, accurate. It's not as accurate as volume. You will have problems, like you won't be able to, we can't clap, for instance. You try and clap in Rokoko, it's going to be like this. It's going to be offset slightly. So it's not going to be as accurate, Does it get you to that 85 or 95% point that you want to be at? Yes, it will. So it's relatively accurate, right, for the money, and it's reliable. So you don't have problems like you have less breaking points with inertial motion capture, right? You have the sensors, which could individually break. You could have a bad cable, but you don't have cameras. You don't have tripods. You don't have power for each camera. You don't have, with AI MOCAP, which we'll talk about in a second, hey, if something goes wrong during that take, because it isn't real time, you don't get to see the result. And therefore, if you have the actor go home, you've hired an actor for the day, things can go wrong kind of more. So inertial MOCAP, I think of as being more reliable, whether it's XNs, whether it's Perception Neuron, or whether it's us. Cons, fidelity, again, it's not going to be as accurate as volume motion capture or as the high end of AI. There's a fidelity ceiling. And you have this issue of drift over time. Most inertial motion capture suits, including ours, will drift over time. That's because of there's magnetometers in the sensors. In Rokoko, we used to have a bigger magnetic drift problem than we do now. We were able to push a lot of firmware updates that fixed it. But either way, with any inertial MOCAP suit, you will have drift over time. And that's because the more time that elapses between that calibration pose, the more your character and your movements are just starting to diverge, right? There's little things that build up over time that add to this drift. So you get drift over time, which is why with our suit, like, I recommend doing a calibration like every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. If you're a VTuber, you got to do a calibration every 30 minutes, probably. Like, you got to build it in. It's one of the limitations, right? Drift over time. One of the pros that wasn't in here as well is that it's real time. So that's another advantage. You get to see the feedback in real time. You get to review your clips in real time. So there's a lot of advantages, I think, for the indie MOCAP creator. It's going to be inertial or AI that probably makes the most sense for you, right? And speaking of AI, let's go to AI and vision, which is undoubtedly been getting the most news recently, whether it's Wonder Studio, whether it's Move.ai, both of which are so impressive. And again, I'm not here to Move.ai. I'm not here to Move.ai is pretty great. Some of the results that I've seen, you can go to their website, are just absolutely amazing. And AI is definitely the future of the industry. I think comes with a big caveat, which is that the future is a long way off still. Hey, it would be great if it wasn't, but as I was saying, there's no perfect solution. The industry in CG especially, it moves slowly. And that's because people have workflows that they have developed over time, and so they tend to move slowly. And so AI, eventually, I have no doubt, will basically take over almost all motion capture, depending on niche situations. But we're not there yet, and it's, again, I try to think about this as a consumer. There are still real limitations to AI that can be very frustrating. And so it's not like AI wins. And so let's talk about the pros. What are the pros? Super high fidelity potential. You go to Move.ai, you go to Wonder, and some of those clips, most of the ones that they show, are amazing, right? They're great. They look really good. And for Move.ai, especially the stuff where you have many different cameras capturing stuff, that it just looks great, right? And part of that, again, is, as we were talking in inertial motion capture, we have this idea of relative positional, where the sensors know where they are relative to the other sensors. Then we have absolute positioning, which the volume, it's actually tracking where your arms are. It's not reconstructing it. AI is, again, it's actually tracking where your movements are, right? So you have a very high fidelity potential if you can have enough cameras and if everything goes right, right? So you can get, I think, very good, very, very high motion capture, definitely better than inertial at the high end. Again, there's no 100%. So the goal, it all gets you to 85, 95. But that is one of the big pros. Another big pro is price. again, for Move.ai, I think there's like and I'll talk about them because they're often who we are being compared to the most. They get a lot of news, and again, for good reason. Some of the stuff they put out is incredible. But it's not just a subscription. Most AI is all subscription based. But also for Move.ai, for those multi-camera setups, well, you need a bunch of iPhones. It all comes out to around 2K, 2.5K, depends on how many iPhones you're using, blah, blah, blah. But it's not as expensive as volume. So it's relatively cheap, I think, AI, Vision MOCAP, right? That's definitely one of the advantages as well. What are the cons? And I just do not hear these being talked about enough. So I'm going to talk about them because they are real. Difficulty and fiddliness are, I think, a major frustration that I've heard from people working with AI MOCAP and Move specifically. It's a lot to have 6 iPhones all connected. They all need their own tripod. One of the iPhones loses connection to the host iPhone. You are setting up a lot of things every time you use multi-camera AI. There's a lot of points of failure. You're not just plugging in a battery pack. You're dealing with 6 iPhones. You're dealing with the host iPhone. You're dealing with setting it all up, unless you have a dedicated space. This is also a con of AI MOCAP. You need a very large space because you can't, relatively large, because you can't use wide-angle lenses usually for AI MOCAP. It needs to be a narrow lens, so that's like a 1 or a 2 on your iPhone, right? And if you've tried to set up 4 iPhones in a room, this is a big room, so maybe this would work, but a lot of indie creators don't have access to like a standing space studio. We just released our own. We have an AI MOCAP solution, Rokoko Vision. I've been making videos for it, and I have to go and kind of clear out my living room every time I do a video, which, there's advantages to AI again, but it can be fiddly. You have lots of points of failure, and that's a real limitation. And then, of course, the final limitation is occlusion. I will again call out how freaking awesome. Move, come on. What the Move 1 just came out for your iPhone looks crazy. Like, incredible results I've been seeing. At the same time, you have these occlusion issues. You have issues with the hands and finger, reliable hand and finger motion capture. From a single camera, even using the true depth sensor of an iPhone, which the Move 1 requires, if you can't turn away from the camera and keep mocap acting, now you end up working to the limitations of the tool. That's not to say Move 1 is not a great tool. It's just that it does have these limitations, and you need to take all these limitations into mind when you pick a workflow, right? And again, you're picking a workflow. So you're kind of have to commit to one of these companies and their vision of how they do it. And I think what my perspective on the Move 1 is, it's so great, especially if you don't need finger motion capture. You can do a lot of things, but then it's not going to solve every problem. Whereas like a Rokoko suit, it would solve, you don't have occlusion issues. You can turn around. You don't have some of those limits. You have other limitations. But I would be willing to trade those limitations, right? I prefer the Rokoko limitations to the AI Vision one. It would be a different story if AI Vision was real time. It's also not real time, so you got to wait 10 to 15 minutes for each take. So your actor leaves and then you don't have it. And all to say, AI can be great, but there are real limitations. And I think it's valuable for people to understand going in that it's not going to be a walk in the park. And again, it's tempting to think Wonder Studio is like the golden goose. It's fucking awesome. Some of the things I've seen with Wonder Studio. And then I've heard of instances where they did the shoot assuming Wonder would work, and guess what? Wonder doesn't work for 4 of the 20 shots. Well, now you're hand animating 4 shots, which ends up in the end being more work than a less, magical solution would have been, like Rokoko. So, going with your eyes open. Okay, EMF. So this is a new type of motion capture. Yeah, electromagnetic field-based motion capture. The Rokoko coil, which is a product that we have in pre-order, is really the only MOCAP tool that uses this method. We'll probably see more. The way that EMF motion capture works is that you have a coil. I'm not a scientist, but you have a coil thing that generates a big EMF bubble. In the coil's case, it's about 5 meters in radius, but then there's fall off as you get to that 5 meters for your accuracy, right? But within that 5 meters, the coil can sense trackers in absolute space. So that's really exciting. Again, this concept of local relative space versus absolute space. Inertial motion capture, those sensors are relative space. They only know where they are relative to the other sensors in the chain. With EMF, the sensors actually know where they are. They know that when you're clapping your hands, they're on your hands. They're not like a reconstruction of your hand so that there's clipping. No, they're like the objects I'm tracking were here. I know that. So they have this absolute positioning fidelity. Now, what are the cons? So that's the advantage, right? This is new technology for us. There's a potential for really amazing absolute positioning fidelity, which we're seeing borne out, and we can't wait to release this product. But the cons, it's a new technology. There's going to be new workflows. There's going to be new issues. And then also you have this capture area issue, which is that EMF is, it has a limit. It has a limit to the space, right? You can only use it within that bubble that it creates. Now, we are working on a transition, so you'll be able to walk outside the bubble and your suit will take over. But that is definitely a limitation to EMF. And where that bubble ends, where that influence ends of that electromagnetic field, it stops working unless you have IMUs, inertial measurement unit, IMU sensors, right, to take over. A lot of information. Hope you're keeping up. Hope this is useful for everyone, because I think it is, hopefully. Okay, now we're going to move on to facial motion capture. Facial motion capture, ignore the bottom bit there. Let's look up ARKit. ARKit, facial mocap. So facial motion capture is the process by which we capture your face. This is very different generally to how body motion capture is captured. With your body, what you're doing is you're tracking the movement of bones. Bones don't flex. I mean, my wrist is flexing because there's a joint here. But this forearm, it doesn't flex. It shouldn't flex. Your bones shouldn't flex. You can take that one and put it in your pocket. If they are flexing, invest in blend shapes, I guess, which is how facial motion capture works, because your face doesn't have a lot of facial rigs. They will work off joints, but a lot of, especially prosumer ones for indie creators, it works off of blend shapes. I'm not really going to explain what blend shapes are, but basically they're different. For the Apple ARKit, for example, there's 52 blend shapes that makes up your face and all the emotions of your face. So one of the blend shapes, for example, is right eye closed. That's one blend shape. And when you can animate, so this would be 0, and if we animated up on the blend shape, that would be 1. Half open would be 0.5, right? So the way that facial motion capture works, and the most common facial motion capture is done through the ARKit. It's why Unreal Engine's Live Link uses an iPhone, because it relies on the ARKit. It's why Rokoko's facial motion capture requires an iPhone. It requires the ARKit. iClone on an iPhone, ARKit. It's because Apple bought a company called FaceShift to make animojis, which I use all the time. I don't know if you guys do, but those little, you can be a little character in your iPhone. They bought that technology and they basically locked up all that facial motion capture technology, which, as it turns out, is the default prosumer level facial motion capture technology because everyone has an iPhone. Now, that is the consumer level of facial motion capture technology. It really uses an iPhone. We just recently got MetaHuman Animator released for Unreal. It is incredible. It is now easily the best free facial motion capture system out there. It only works for metahumans, but for metahumans, it's crazy. It's amazing. So that's another system. You still need to be on an iPhone because you need the true depth sensor that's in there. And then you have the higher level facial motion capture. Look, you can even see this guy. He's on a capture stage. Guess what? He's got an iPhone. He's surrounded by $100,000 worth of cameras, and the facial motion capture, it's still going through an iPhone. So that gives you an idea of how ubiquitous iPhone facial motion capture is in the market. Now, traditional, for Marvel, for the Hulk, they don't use an iPhone. They use, I typed in ARKit, Hulk facial mocap Mark Ruffalo. I don't know how to spell his name. Look at this. This is how they do. This is the high end of facial motion capture. It's dots all over the face. You film that with a camera, and then you do a bunch of magic on the back end that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to process all those dots and the way they move and all the intricacies of the face, right? So those are the two types of facial motion capture. MetaHuman Animator is really the new kid on the scene for that. It's amazing. Go check out the keynote if you want to know more about that. Okay. We're moving. We're going. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with me. And I'm going to get to the chat at the end. Retargeting and cleanup. Retargeting workflow, Maya, Rokoko. We're going to type that in. Boom. Okay. So I talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but this so we've gone through, we've talked about all the different ways to get your motion capture, whether it's volume, whether it's inertial, whether it's EMF, whether it's AI, whether it's other, and there are some other options I didn't even talk about, especially when it comes to VTubing. You've got your MOCAP. Now comes the work, because for most of these systems, with the exception of volume, it's actually not that, it's doable to get the MOCAP. That's understandable. You can kind of give it to any digital native. I can give you a Rokoko suit, it's right back there. You can plug in, you can figure that out. The hard part of motion capture is when we get to retargeting. Now, retargeting, again, is the process of taking your motion capture, your digital skeleton that has rotational data on each joint, and copying that data over to your character. The way that you do that is you basically go into, and all the programs have, we're going to talk about all the different programs in a second here. But each program has a different way of doing it. But what they all kind of are doing is you import your MOCAP into the program, you import your rigged character into the program. That's a character that's rigged with bones. And then you tell the program, hey, this is the right arm of my character. This is the right upper arm of my character. And this is the right upper arm of my MOCAP. This is the right lower arm of my MOCAP. This is the right lower arm of my character. And in all these programs, you have to go in and you have to define for the program. The program is dumb. You have to define for the program, hey, this is each bone. And when I want you to copy data from the MOCAP, I want you to copy it from each bone to the corresponding bone on my character. Now that might seem really easy to do. Maybe it doesn't. That was quite a rambly thing I just gave. But it's not. It's easy-ish. It's easy relative to many things in CG, but it is a process. And again, for each of these programs, it's different. And the other thing that people have a really hard time with motion capture about is it is still relatively niche. Rokoko, we started offering affordable MOCAP suits, kind of came on the scene around 5 years ago, whether it's Perception Neuron, whether it's XNs, bringing their price down a little bit, whether it's other MOCAP solutions that have come out. It's all pretty new, and it's all pretty niche in the CG world, which means there aren't as many tutorials and there aren't as many educational resources as we would want, especially in the diaspora of CG programs. There's more MOCAP tutorials for Blender than there are for Maya, even though Maya is a far better choice to retarget MOCAP in. It just turns out that Maya's community doesn't make tutorials. Cinema 4D has an amazing tutorial community, but the MOCAP tools are just starting to evolve in Cinema 4D, so there's not a lot of MOCAP tutorials. So people run into this problem in CG, where the most important skill in CG is being an autodidact, teaching yourself new skills, because workflows are always changing. It can be difficult to get up to speed for the process of retargeting. And that can be a real stepping block for people to stumble over. Now, at Rokoko, we have put out so many resources for retargeting, which we really don't need to do. I mean, our product is motion capture. Our product is not retargeting. That's CG world. That's other workflows. But we understand that without the retargeting aspect, what are you going to do with your MOCAP? So we have put out tons and tons and tons of tutorials on retargeting. And you can check our YouTube channel. They don't even necessarily apply to Rokoko. They're general retargeting tutorials in many cases. But I think, I'll give us a little shout out that we have really spent so much time and effort to trying to demystify and make retargeting easier. We actually just added some retargeting tools within Rokoko Studio that are very simplified, but the goal is always to make this is the part that people start running into the wall is retargeting. And so now we're going to go through every software, and I'm going to talk about my thoughts on retargeting for each software. And I'm actually I can bring up YouTube videos in the background. Rokoko. We have an ultimate retargeting playlist. I'm gonna go in, we're gonna look at these videos. Excuse me, bless me. Bless me? Playlists. Where are we? Tutorials and workflows. Wait, where are tutorials and workflows? Where's my ultimate? Wait, I gotta go to playlists. Go to playlists. Sorry, hold on. No. Okay, we're going to Maya Ultimate Retargeting. So we have a series called Ultimate Guide to Retargeting. Turn off the audio. Run this in the background. This is so we're gonna go through each software now, and I'm just gonna I'll let this run in the background kind of, but I'm just gonna give you my thoughts. And again, these are all really kind of personal opinions. These, CG is so vast, and the ways that you can do things are so varied. I'm an idiot, man. I barely, I'm one of the most, I'm one of the people who know the most about retargeting in this world, and I don't know what I'm doing still. It's complicated. And so these are really, I think you have to make these decisions for yourself. And also I'll say, I'm talking about what I think the overall best software is to do retargeting, and how these softwares do retargeting. But if you have spent your whole life in Blender, you should be using Blender to do retargeting, because the way Blender works. They're great tools, so I wouldn't say Blender's the best, but I'm not a Blender head. So for a Blender user, it's clear that Blender would be the best. But in reality, the best is Maya. Maya is the best software to do retargeting in my opinion. Now, every single person I know who uses Maya, including myself, who swears by it, hates Maya. That is a joke in the Maya world, that Maya is the most intimidating interface. It's all gray. There are problems from Maya like 2014, which are still in Maya 2023. Like the undo button in Maya classically is like still broken. If you undo, you'll like break projects because of the way the Maya backend is built. But that being said, Maya has been the industry standard for animation for as long as animation has, since Jurassic Park, since Toy Story. It does a great job, and specifically with character animation. And part of that is because Maya bought a program or a plugin or something called the Human IK system. Now, the Human IK system is a way of working with motion capture and character animation that just turns out to be amazing. I've actually I've asked many people, why is Maya retargeting the best? And basically people have told me, I asked this of someone who worked at Maya, they were like, it just is better. It's got some special sauce in the way that it interprets animation, mocap animation, to a character. When you do retargeting in Unreal, for instance, or even in Blender, oftentimes you'll have more foot slippage than you will in Maya. And it's just because Maya is better at doing this. It has a very clear and simple way of building IK control rigs for custom characters. And that becomes really important when you want to do mocap editing. And we'll talk about what a custom control rig is. Actually, we'll jump to it right now. So in mocap editing, and when you're doing editing in general, what you want is to have it be an IK control rig that you're editing. And what IK is inverse kinematics. It basically means that if I need to edit the location of the wrist, I can move only the wrist and the rest of the arm is going to follow. Now, in most of the programs, you don't have an IK control rig that's really easy to generate, so you have to do mocap editing FK, forward kinematic. And that means if I want to move my wrist, well, I got to start at my right collarbone, move that. Then I got to move my right upper arm. Then I got to move my lower arm. Then I got to move my wrist. I got to go down the chain forwards instead of backwards. And it makes it harder to edit mocap. So Maya, it's although it's complicated, although it's intimidating, look at this gray mess over here. It's disgusting. It is really good at taking in a custom character, quickly defining all the bones, quickly generating a control rig based on that character definition. I don't have to build a custom control rig. I hit a single button, it generates an IK control rig for me. That makes editing super easy. And then the final two things are, it has this great animation layering system. You can see down here on the screen, maybe if I jump to it in a second. This pop out, don't show that, but this right here, it's a animation layering system that makes it really easy to do additive animations, which is great. And then it also has some smoothing filters. Maya has something called a Butterworth filter, which smooths out your mocap animation, and it can just make things really buttery and like give it that AAA vibe. So Maya, I still use it. It's what I personally use for all my retargeting when I need a good result, because I know it will be the best. And then I take the result and I export it to Unreal or I export it to Cinema 4D. Literally the only thing I know how to do in Maya is retargeting. And I know a lot about it, but it's not that tough. You can check out our workflow to find out more. That's why I think Maya is the best software for retargeting. Then I send it out to good renderers that are easy to understand. Blender's my number 2. This is for a couple of reasons. Blender has had a crazy explosion in capability in the last few years. It's really incredible. And one of the things, because Blender is free, there is an incredible community around Blender. Not only creating tutorials, but creating plugins. And there is a Blender marketplace. There's no Maya marketplace where you can get solves from other members of the community. No. Blender has... You can go get mocap plugins on the marketplace. You can go watch a million tutorials for mocap retargeting and mocap editing. There's lots of resources. Blender is amazing. I'd say it's easily the second best software to do mocap retargeting in for those reasons. And, we can let's go to the Blender one. Blender Ultimate Retargeting. We go through it all here. There's a pretty easy way to generate a Mixamo IK control rig in Blender. Other than that, control rigs can be tough to generate, although there are plugins, which is why it doesn't edge out over Maya, because Maya's really good at taking any type of character I might get from an artist, from a store that I rigged myself. Blender, it's going to be more work. Same thing for Unreal, for custom characters. So Blender's really great. Incredible community, incredible resources to help you, and check out our tutorials if you want to know about Blender. It's my number 2 pick. We're doing drafting. Number 3 is Unreal Engine. All the other ones really, though, are worse. Now we start getting into programs that are really still trying to figure out how to handle this issue of retargeting. Unreal Engine, if you are an Unreal person who only works in Unreal, then learn the Unreal workflows for retargeting. They're getting better and better with each new release. Metahumans, obviously, are amazing, and the workflows for metahumans, for example, when you download a metahuman, which is Unreal Engine's free, super high fidelity characters that come rigged for facial animation. They're the most amazing characters that are free. They come with their own control rig. So you don't need to build a custom control rig. You can have an IK control rig with your metahuman. Now you bring in a custom character, like say this guy. Let's go to the Unreal one right now. But if I were to bring in that guy, guess what? Now, and I did in this tutorial, now I'm having to build my own control rig, and it's a mess, and that's a whole other thing. So Unreal, it's obviously free. There's a huge community for Unreal 2, lots of tutorials, lots of information out there. It's not for high-end mocap cleanup. It's tough. Most of the professionals that I know of who work in Unreal with mocap, they don't do their retargeting in Unreal. They do it in Maya. They do it in Blender. Blender's often a launch pad for Unreal. They kind of go hand in hand. It's great, but for retargeting, it's clunky and it's messy and incredibly frustrating, especially because I get a lot of Unreal corrupted projects and then I lose work, and it's very frustrating. So Unreal's great, but it's for retargeting, just like for modeling. Unreal is a stage. You bring things to Unreal, you put them on the stage, and they look gorgeous, but you really don't make a lot of stuff in Unreal still. You bring other assets that were made in other programs into Unreal. iClone. So iClone is, where is it? I know I got it. Don't I have an iClone one? Where's my iClone one? Ultimate? Oh, we called it something else. iClone is a software that is more niche, I find. It's definitely not used that much in the studio system at the high end of VFX in my experience. Don't come at me, iClone. But iClone's great. Generally, it's geared towards a more... it's kind of simplified. It's also really complicated, but they've done a really good job of simplifying complicated things. For example, their retargeting cleanup tools, like look at this, it's fantastic. They do a really good job. You can go in and automatically fix shoulders. You can mouse click to digitally puppet hand finger mocap, like by dragging your mouse. Some really cool stuff. iClone's amazing, but it's more niche. It kind of works well within its own ecosystem, although a lot of people use the character creation tools from iClone, like Character Creator 4. They have great mocap tools. It's expensive. It can be a little confusing to understand how expensive it is because their website is a deep library of information, and they have a lot of different things you need to turn on. So it can be expensive. It can be a little difficult to get started in, but it's great. And especially for retargeting, like this is our, like if we could integrate something like this in Rokoko Studio, which I'm sure would be a crazy amount of work, and we're trying, but it won't be as good. This is really good. So really good for retargeting. iClone's great, but it's niche, not as many tutorials. You know, it's not as industry standard, I'll say. Cinema 4D. It's my baby. It's my baby. Really good with Mixamo. Retargeting is still evolving in Cinema 4D. They have the character definition tag. Let's pull it up. They have the character definition tag, so you can extract some skeletons automatically, like Mixamo skeletons. They do an okay job, and actually I just saw they've been releasing a bunch of new tools for mocap. I think it's become a real focus, so it's getting a lot better. I'll say traditionally, Cinema 4D, much to my, not disappointment, but you know, I love Cinema. It's my program. That's what I'm in all the time. It doesn't have the easiest mocap tools, and you kind of got to know some more obscure parts of Cinema in order to do retargeting. We have this tutorial. It's on the simple end. It's easy. again, where most of these programs fall down is the editing portion. How easy is it to generate that IK-based control rig? How easy is it to do non-destructive, procedural, additive editing to the mocap? That's where Cinema has a harder time. So, again, my workflow, if I was only working in Cinema 4D, the workflow is great. Learn it. It'll get you going. You can even do editing. But I'm a Cinema 4D head. I use Maya for all my retargeting. Cinema, I'm hoping to move over to soon, full time for it because the tools are getting better. So Cinema 4D, everyone, that's the team I'm on. Just so we're clear, Cinema 4D is the best, but not for retargeting. Unity, kind of like Unreal. We don't have very many tutorials for Unity, unfortunately, because I don't know the program that well. It's something we're working on. We need to get more. It's like Unreal. It's not really made for retargeting, but you can do it in there. There's a bunch of retargeting tools. There's a great community for Unity. So Unity is pretty good when it comes to retargeting, and you can do it in program, and you can do editing to a certain degree. And then Houdini, I'll say Houdini as well. Houdini's great. It has the KinEffects system, and you can do mocap editing in Houdini. It's, of course, Houdini, so it's like rocket science, but Houdini can work too. And there are other ones too that I'm not going to talk about again, but those are kind of the main ones. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about, rigging, digital, let's type in. This is something that I wish I had known when I got started in mocap. The importance of rigging is huge in motion capture. Let me try and find a good example. I don't know if we're going to find a good example, and who knows where this is. God, it's going to take me down some sort of dark rabbit hole here. Here, let's just leave it on this cute fox. When I got started out, I was using a lot of Mixamo characters. Mixamo is a free service that will auto-rig your characters. So you basically upload a mesh of a character. You put some points all over the mesh at the wrists, and then Mixamo magically rigs your character. But what rigging is it's the process of, as you can see, actually, we're getting into it in this Fox video. Here we go. It's the process of taking bones and the skeleton you have, and then doing something called skinning and weight painting. And here it is. This is it. This is perfect. This is it. This is weight painting. So you can see here, they're painting on regions of influence between the mesh and the bones. Now, when you auto rig a character, it does an okay job, but if you want top of the line motion capture, get a character that's rigged by a rigger. Get a character that is well made, because the way that your character deforms and moves plays such a huge role. If you take the same mocap clip, you put it on a poorly rigged character, and I'm not even talking like really badly rigged, like even, 6 out of 10 rigged job versus 9 out of 10 rigged character, the difference in the result will be crazy. So it's really important that you give enough respect to how your character is made. Throwing a character into Mixamo, into Actor Core for iClone to do auto rigging, doing auto rigging in Blender, it will not look as good as someone who's gone through, taken the time, done proper weight painting, made sure that character really moves the way that it should, because it just ends up making a huge difference in the mocap result, right? And we end up judging motion capture not by the mocap take, but by how it moves on the character. And so it's really easy to be frustrated because you're like, my mocap looks good, my character looks bad. You got to get a better character. You got to look at the skinning. You got to, we're talking AAA. We're talking high level. Most of the time it doesn't fucking matter. But if you want it to look really good, that character better be well made. And that's something I did not respect at the beginning. I was like, Mixamo looks fine. Then I start doing detail shots and it's like, oh shit. The shoulders are all, the mesh is all screwed up and it messes up these shots. So it makes a big difference. And part of that can be cloth and physics. Let's look up cloth, physics, MOCAP. We'll look at Blender. Because I know there's going to be some gorgeous ones on... Yeah, look at this. So... Here. Well, okay. I want to find it on a character. Cloth and... Nope. Let's do motion capture character. Here, let's look at this one. Gotta wait for the ad. So I want to talk about cloth and physics, but really what I'm talking about here is something that is more of a personal belief of mine, which is that our eyes are trained. You know, reality is a really complicated place. Think about what's happening in reality. You know, I'm always saying to my wife, like, oh my God, look at the simulation on the ocean right now. We're like out on the beach, and I'm always talking about like the particle effects of the sand interacting with the waves. Please, somebody save my poor wife. She's like glazed over. But my point is, reality is really complicated, and therefore what we take in, we're used to seeing complicated things. And when it comes to motion capture, when it comes to character animation, doing something as simple as adding a strip of cloth, I'm not even talking about a full shirt here, but adding anything that adds another level of complexity to the movement, to the way your character, interacts with the world, wind on the cloth, these little things, physics, having a zipper that isn't a soft body but moves on the jacket, having a grenade on the belt of your character that jingles, which is just enabling a rigid body and parenting it to the belt, right? Those little touches can take motion capture to this kind of next level. And usually when I see, if you were to take, I think, a lot of the good you look at anything, you look at Astartes, unbelievable short film series on YouTube, look it up, about Warhammer, some of the best renderings I've ever seen. If you took all those characters and you got rid of the physics of them, they wouldn't look as good. And it's because those little things add a lot to character animation and to movement. Okay, we've made it to kind of the end. We're going to jump into a suit pretty soon. Now I'm going to start ranting. So I'm going to look at the comments in a section, but first I want to do some myth busting, baby. These are things that I see in the comments of our videos often. These are things that I hear about from customers. I think these are common misconceptions, I'll say, that especially when it comes to Rokoko, but also in terms of motion capture. And the first one is, Rokoko has bad mocap. I see this all the time. I won't say all the time because it makes it seem like, everyone is having bad experiences with Rokoko, which is not true, which is the whole point of why I'm talking about it. But oftentimes people who do have bad experiences, they will comment and you will see things like Rokoko has bad mocap. And I always find this to be just ridiculous because I have over 50, 70 hours of live. We're about to hop in a suit right now. I have hours of live streaming content of the suit performing as it performs, which is very well. Rokoko mocap is good, and you can see that in all the live streaming content. I mean, I'm sorry, these other companies, they're not out here doing live streams every week, poking holes in their own products, showing you the limitations, being very upfront about the limitations of their product, but also the advantages by showing it in a live setting. That's risky. And things often go wrong in our live streams or whatever, but Rokoko is not bad mocap. Rokoko actually, I think, is really good mocap, and especially when taken within the context of the industry and the other options. Rokoko, honestly, is an awesome mocap. And if you need, and I work for Rokoko, do not trust me. I'm a consumer in the CG space. A spokesperson for a company tells me their company's product is good. That's not surprising. You need to go and you need to look for yourself and decide for yourself. And it should be very clear that Rokoko is not bad mocap. If you spend any time looking at the, 70 plus hours of live streaming content I have showing the suit operating. It's not bad mocap. Is it true that people can have bad experiences? Is it true that we will ship out a suit maybe with a bum sensor or a bum cable, and that's on us? That's bad, right? We made a mistake. It's not working for you. But oftentimes I see people who maybe were in the wrong environment or didn't really understand what they were getting into, and they say Rokoko has bad mocap, and it's not true. We have good mocap. Go check our channel if you doubt me. Book a one-on-one live demo with the product specialist. We'll put our money where our mouth is. So that one's not true. Rokoko does not have bad mocap. The next one is the golden goose. And I'm just letting this play in the background so you have something to look at. There is no perfect mocap solution in this industry. It does not exist. Is Wonder Studio going to solve all your problems? Nope. Is Move.ai going to solve all your problems? Nope. Is Rokoko going to solve all your problems? No. Is XNs? No. Is volume motion capture? No. There is no perfect mocap solution. They all have advantages. They all have limitations. And I see a lot of these new when Wonder comes out, Wonder is, again, big ups. Some of that stuff is crazy that you can do in Wonder Studio. Like, go check it out. Go try it. I am not saying don't, but there are lots of problems with Wonder 2. There are lots of limitations with Wonder 2. There's no perfect situation, and there is no perfect tool. Certainly not Rokoko. You need to figure out what's going to be the best tool, the best workflow for your specific situation, whether you're a VTuber, whether you're an indie creator, whether you're working at a small studio, whether you're working at a big studio, you need previs. These are all different scenarios, and they all require different types of mocap. And again, to Rokoko's credit, I will say, we now have an AI mocap solution. We have a suit mocap solution. We have facial mocap. We're going to have EMF absolute positioning. What we're trying to do is build a selection that maybe one of these tools will solve your problems, right? But I will never say any of the single tools will solve your problems, because it's just not true. And I mean, as a consumer, it's one of the things that kills me when these companies, they come out and they say, we've got it all solved. No, this is CG, baby. There is no golden goose. There is no perfect solution. Keep that in mind. Next one. Wi-Fi versus magnetic interference. I want to play this in the background right here. We just put out this video, just a raw. We're putting out tons of raw demos of our content now, because I think it's good for people to see. Here, I'll play it from the beginning. Wi-Fi versus magnetic interference. I often see, to piggyback on the Rokoko as bad mocap issue, Rokoko is based over Wi-Fi. So one of the most important things about Rokoko is that you're using a dedicated Wi-Fi router that is in the same room that you're working in. Because everything is going over Wi-Fi, your suit is transmitting all of its data over Wi-Fi, which is great because you don't have to work with cameras, you don't need cables, blah, blah, blah. It's one of the advantages. But if you have a bad Wi-Fi connection, or if your roommate is in the other room watching 4K YouTube videos and streaming The Avengers and doing whatever at the same time, using up the Wi-Fi bandwidth, Wi-Fi networks have a finite level of bandwidth. It's a pipe that data goes through. And the more things you're doing, that pipe shrinks. And if you're doing a lot of stuff on that Wi-Fi network, or the Wi-Fi network is in your building and it's beyond a bunch of walls, or in your office and it's up in the ceiling behind a concrete thing, you're going to get bad performance. And I say Wi-Fi versus magnetic interference because oftentimes I see people conflating bad Wi-Fi. They're not using a dedicated router. They don't have the router in the same room, which is probably on us for not making it clearer. That really, I mean, we make it very clear, but you know, it's something that we really need to make sure people know, because it is essential for getting good performance out of your suit. And we see people who have bad Wi-Fi and they think they have magnetic interference. They think they can't get good mocap, where the truth is they're not on a 5G Wi-Fi. Maybe that would fix the problem. Maybe they're on a 5G Wi-Fi network, but guess what? Their office is full of other 5G routers. They need to jump back to a 2.4G network. Wi-Fi is one of the most important factors for Rokoko motion capture. And I will also say magnetic interference can be real. That is a limitation of inertial motion capture, of IMU-based motion capture, whether it's us, whether it's XNs, whether it's perception neuron. They all kind of use magnetometers to do part of the lift. If you're on a sound stage at a concert venue, for example, that's been one location that I've had problems with magnetic interference, because there's so much weird audio stuff in the stage that, like, you can't use the suit there. And guess what? That's a limitation. You can't use the suit there. You got to move. That's why it's super important to test the suits. It's why we have a 30-day free money-back guarantee. You put the suit on, make sure you can use it in your office, and if you can't use it in your office, make sure you can use it in your bedroom, because oftentimes magnetic interference are issues you can't fix. It's things in the wall, it's pipes, it's a cell tower that's next to your building. There's a hard limitation with magnetic interference. It's a lot, it's a rare thing, and I really honestly almost never run into it, and if I do, I just have to move rooms, and like, that's it. So Wi-Fi, have good Wi-Fi. Next one, AI is coming, but when? So AI, as I said before, I believe AI is the future of motion capture. Clearly, it's the future of everything. Any of these things that we're talking about, it's the future of rotoscoping, right? Do people use only AI tools to do rotoscoping now? No. Will they in the next 2 years? No, probably not. There's going to be edge cases where you're wasting time by going down the AI path to then hand correct it later. AI is the future, but it's not here yet. And it's not here, personally, I think, for another at least 3 years, which is a really long time. And in my opinion, it's like, because you as a customer, you do a calculus of, okay, do I spend $2,500 on the Rokoko MOCAP package, or like in the next 6 months, will AI be here and solve all my problems? Well, as I hope we've learned so far, there is no absolute solve for all your problems in CG. There never will be. But also, AI is not there yet. And in my opinion, there are still so many edge cases you run into with using AI tools that in the end, depending on what your workflow is, it can either be more expensive or it can be prohibitive in the limitations. It's not real time. You got to wait for the processing. There are limitations to AI, so it is coming. It's worth getting excited about. Hey, go try out Move 1. I have no problem saying it. It looks cool, but AI is not the end-all be-all. There's huge limitations to it. Just the fact that you need so much space. This is something that I think people don't. They're like, Move.ai looks amazing. Do you have a dedicated studio to leave iPhones up in all the time? Or do you have 90 minutes to set up your iPhones every time you do your mocap? Do you want, there's a 30-minute cap on per month for Move.ai, after which it goes up to $24 a minute for your mocap. There are limitations. So AI is coming. It's not here yet, but it's getting good. Keep your eye on the space. If you need a solution in the next year and a half, I look at Inertial, check out our shit. AI, Inertial is in the game. So is Volume still. AI is, it's like using ChatGPT to write your lawyer brief, like that lawyer learned. It's not all there yet. Still a lot of human touch needed. Final thing, social proof or social spoof. I don't know. Basically, my point being, again, I'm a spokesperson for Rokoko. Don't trust me, man? Go find social proof. I'm a member of the CG world as well, and I don't trust companies. You gotta go see what your favorite creators are doing, and that's why I'm proud that we have people like Clint, Ian Hubert, Winbush, whoever it is, Landgren, bunch of people that are my heroes, and then other studios and stuff. You can go see what they think, see what their results are. Go check out, some of our amazing Star Wars, fan film content. Just incredible stuff. Go check it out yourself. Go watch the demos yourself. Come to the live streams. Press me on the capabilities and the limitations of the suit. That's really important. And I say that because, you go to, I'll call out move.ai. You go to their website, there's a comparison video on there between Rokoko and move.ai. And look, just as a consumer, the goal of a comparison video is to show like the tools like working normally, like compared to each other, or like reasonable, like what the actual performance of the tool is compared to each other. If you go to their website, look, they're telling you, they have a bad take. They chose a bad take to like compare us to for some reason. I think that I don't like that behavior personally. That's why I'm up here saying, look, move.ai can do awesome stuff. There are limitations, as there are with all MOCAP, but like move.ai blows me out of the water sometimes. But that doesn't mean it's better than Rokoko, and it certainly doesn't mean it's better than Rokoko in all situations. And I really don't like it when you go to their website and you see a misleading comparison video. I'll say it. And it's because, again, if you don't think it's misleading, we're going to pop up a demo right now. Compare for yourself. So it's really important that you question companies, including us. Book a free one-on-one demo. Ask us. We might not be the right solution for you. That's what I want to hear from companies. The truth. There's no 100% solution. Certainly not Rokoko, but certainly not move.ai. Certainly not XNs. Certainly not Vicon. Certainly not, none of them. You gotta, it's all relative, right? It's all trade-offs. It's all based on your workflow. And social proof or social spoof. Ask the people that you trust in your world, right? And that you follow. That's what I do when I'm evaluating products. Okay, the case for Rokoko. So now let's get to the demo, baby. Now it's demo time. So we're gonna hop in a suit. The case I'll make for Rokoko, and I'm gonna go to bat for Rokoko right now. I'm a believer. I drank the Kool-Aid. Again, I was a customer before I worked for Rokoko. Here's when Rokoko makes sense. You're an indie creator. You are operating alone. You want to have an affordable MOCAP solution that is super reliable, that is transportable, that you can set up in your home office that's small, that doesn't have enough space for AI, that you can take with an iPhone hotspot out to the woods, record MOCAP on set, that I can throw my suit in a case with my Wi-Fi router and my battery and my laptop. That's all I need. I don't need tripods. I don't need a bunch of iPhones. It's affordable. We have a hand motion capture solution, which is fantastic. It's one of the cheapest on the market. It plugs in directly to the smart suit. We have a facial motion capture solution. We have so much support, whether it comes to retargeting, whether it comes to booking a one-on-one demo, whether it comes to the live stream. We're out here putting our mouth, walking the walk. We're putting our money where our mouth is. There's a 30-day free money-back guarantee. I really believe in Rokoko motion capture. I think it's some of the best out there. And I think the trade-offs for the limitations, which are inertial motion capture, inherent limitations of drift, of clipping, those are all worth it for the rest of the package, for being easy, for being cheap, for being reliable, for being real-time, for me being able to see the takes, for there being no cap on the MOCAP. I'm sorry, again, I keep saying it, move.ai, your MOCAP quality is like, but there's a 30-minute cap per month? I make like 30 minutes of MOCAP, I work in CG, I make it all the time. I don't want to have to be like, what were my minutes? I think that we're a great product, but don't trust me. Trust the community, trust the social proof, trust the demo. And that's the end of my spiel. How long did that go? Way too long, an hour and a half. Okay, what are the questions, baby? Okay, hi, everyone. I have not acknowledged anyone, but we're going to talk about some questions really quick. Good info, thank you. Optical will always be better than inertial. It's just a matter if you can afford it. Kermit the Dab, 1,000% right. Inertial is a great opportunity for the price. The coil will be great to close the gap. It will. Do I know anything about the IPI stuff? No, True Bones. Is the video going to be saved to watch later? Yes, it is. It's going to be, I'm going to cut it down actually. Houdini's awesome. Beyond Cinema. Good to see you, Beyond Cinema. Amazing creator, as you all are. Houdini kin effect system. I'm just going through the comments really quick. Kin effect system is great, complicated. Plot Coalition, I use Unreal exclusively right now. It can certainly be clunky, but it's getting so much better. It absolutely is. That's a great point. Unreal Engine is one of the products, unlike Cinema, unlike Maya, unlike Blender, most people upgrade to the latest version every time a new version comes out, and that's because with every version of Unreal, there is Unreal progress. I'm sorry, I had to do it. So it is getting better. It's still deep. For my opinion on Unreal, if you want to learn it, I haven't been willing to do this, but I need to because Unreal is fucking amazing. You gotta kind of approach it as a game dev. You can't ignore the game dev aspects of Unreal. It's a game engine. So I think for most people that can be a little intimidating, and blueprints and visual, it's different if you're coming from Cinema, if you're coming from Unreal, from Blender, from Maya. But it is getting better, and I hope the Unreal thing is going to be like, Unreal's really good. It's just not good, I find, for custom characters, which I'm in a unique spot that I am constantly changing up using new characters. So take that with a grain of salt. Unreal is great. I think it's worse than Blender, but it's great for retargeting specifically. When will we make it compatible with the UE5 skeleton? Stubborn Ox. We have a fix coming for our Unreal skeleton export later this month. We're also lifting the poly limit, so you can import characters into Rokoko Studio that will be over 100k poly, which is really awesome. Mixamo still looks way better than human modeling. Yeah, totally. Random thought. Mixamo's great. I use it all the time, but character can make a difference, how they're built. Yeah, Stubborn Ox. We have a Unreal. You might need to, you might need to get a Plus subscription for that. You can do a 14-day free trial for the Plus subscription, but I think you do need a Plus subscription to have access to that. And I'll address that briefly too, because I got a lot of questions about that being locked up behind a paywall, essentially. That you do need a subscription. I would love to make it free, man. It would be maybe we will. I've argued for it a lot. We're it's the realities of running a business. We wish it could all be free. I think that feature maybe will change and offer the Unreal skeleton as well for free. We should really do that. I'm gonna look into that. It's a good point. But in general, we do lock up some things. Facial motion capture, live streaming is locked behind. You need a Plus subscription. You do need a subscription for some of that stuff, but you can try it all out for free. Nice. Rokoko MOCAP is fantastic. Oh man, single core studio feature length. That's crazy, man. Or person, I'll say, not man. I won't assume anything. That's awesome. Incredible. I cannot wait to watch that single core. Physics filter. Yes, physics filter is coming. I don't want to say a date on that because I could be wrong. I hope it's soon. It probably isn't until, I hope it's before the end of the year. I'll say that. It's not our highest priority. We're working on getting the coil done, then it'll be physics filter. So it's not here yet. Okay, let's make some MOCAP. Okay, so what's going on here? How do I get it set up? Let's talk about that first. Here we've entered the demo portion of the live stream. So I actually have here, I have another computer set up, and that's because normally when I make motion capture, I use an offline router. We talked about this. That's a router that actually isn't even connected to the internet. And some people get confused the difference between Wi-Fi and internet. The internet is it's a physical thing. It goes out from your building. The Wi-Fi network has nothing to do with the internet. The Wi-Fi network is a local network It's not connected to the internet, but what it is doing is it's connecting your router, which is connected to the internet, to your computer. The Wi-Fi network is just the bridge, but it doesn't actually have internet in it, you know. It's just the bridge between your computer and the internet source. So for Rokoko, it works off of Wi-Fi. It doesn't work off of internet. It works off of a Wi-Fi network. And that means that I want a dedicated offline Wi-Fi router in the room. Mine's right here, sitting right here. Can you see it in the thing? Can you see it? You know, literally right here. In the same room. Like, would it probably be okay if it was in the other room? Like, maybe, but why would I want good MOCAP quality. It's a MOCAP, it's a Wi-Fi based MOCAP system. I need good MOCAP quality. So I got my Wi-Fi router right here. I think that's important. And right, the reason I bring that up is just because my computer that I'm streaming on, that's connected to the internet, and then I'm routing the signal, the video signal. It's basically just a monitor coming in from the computer that's offline, right? The computer I'm making MOCAP on, it's offline. It's on that Wi-Fi router, it's offline. And it's piping the image to my laptop that's online. So I just say that because when I make MOCAP normally, I'm not online. I jump over to my Wi-Fi router, in this case, here, Alex Wi-Fi 5G, and I use that. I'm not online. And it's great because Rokoko Studio doesn't need to be online. Okay, let's do it. Enough of this talk, enough of this Sam blathering on for hours and hours at a time. I gotta turn off my background blur because you know we can't have no background blur. And we're gonna hop in the suit. So and let me go grab all my stuff now. What are we playing with today? Gloves. I got my battery. We can take a look at the facial. This is our new head rig iPhone mount. Awesome. For your facial motion capture, we can take a look at that. But then the main event, we got the Rokoko Smart Suit Pro 2. So this is the point I was kind of making of fiddliness when it comes to AI motion capture. It's not this easy to get your MOCAP going. And here, this is it. This is the whole process. I put on the suit. This takes me less than a minute. I've already, the suit is already configured for my computer. The first time I connect the suit to my computer to set up the Wi-Fi network, I upgrade the firmware, when I pull it out of the box. I set up the Wi-Fi connection to my computer, and that's it. And then from then on, it's all good to go. Suit's on. How long did that take? Less than a minute. Yeah. Zipped up. I wear my red beanie. Somebody asked why I wear the red beanie. I have been wearing it for years and years and years, but the other reason is because it hides my headband for my head sensor. Boom. Let's throw on these gloves. Again, these gloves work natively with the Smart Suit. So I just plug them in. They all use the same generic Wi-Fi, generic battery pack, which is really nice. I'm not sure if this is still the case, but I think for a while XNs, maybe this isn't true. I'm sorry, XNs, if this is true, but for one of the other MOCAP systems, you had to charge the suit itself, which meant if you ran out of battery, you were screwed because you had to recharge the suit. We just power off of a generic battery pack. I have 10 of these. I just, one of my MOCAP is such a low power draw, this suit, that it'll go for, 10 or 12 hours. I never run these batteries out. But then if I did, it's just another battery. Sorry if I don't look at the camera. I got 8 screens going on. Okay, so if all goes well, oh my, look at that. Okay, let's go for speed here because I want to make a point. How long has it been since I didn't have the suit on? This is one of the huge advantages of inertial motion capture, of Rokoko motion capture. That's it. We're making MOCAP. That was the whole process. And you can see some of the limitations. We're going to talk about these limitations. Look, I got my hands on my thighs. They're not in the right spot. The coil is going to fix some of those problems, but that's a limitation of Rokoko inertial motion capture. Now, you might say, hey, with Move.ai, it's not going to look like that. It's going to look a little bit better. I'm sorry, I keep picking on Move, even though, again, as I've said, Move is awesome. Some of the stuff is awesome. But you have to remember, look, regardless if I'm moving my hands in post to editing this much, or if it was here and I just had to adjust it this much, your character's proportions will never be the same as yours, which means you will always have to do mocap editing. So the question is not what can give you perfect mocap. The question is what can get you close enough to not give you a headache and to make this process easy. And I think that gets lost oftentimes again, right? The goal is not to get to 100%. The goal is to get to 95 to 85% because you're at the high end, you're gonna have to do mocap editing. And at the low end for an Instagram video, I don't have to edit this at all. This looks great. And whatever, there's some clipping, who cares? It's an Instagram video. If you're making a AAA teaser, I don't care what, and you use a $100,000 Vicon setup, you're still doing editing because you're retargeting to Winston the gorilla from Overwatch, whose arms are, twice as long as a human's. You always have to do editing. So we've actually tried to make this a little bit easier in Rokoko Studio using some of the tools. But okay, so hopefully, again, myth busting, disproving Rokoko has bad mocap, I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't look bad to me. This is so cheap for what you get. I'm gonna be bullish. I'm usually not as bullish, but our mocap is awesome. Now let's sit. Now you might see with sitting, you're gonna see my feet drift a little bit, probably. And even if they're not drifting right now, they would over time. That's okay, that's to be expected. And that's part of inertial motion capture in live stream. You can see right there, you saw my feet kind of drifting. That all goes away once we do a recording. So that's another important thing to understand about Rokoko. For live streaming, there's a lot more limitations on the accuracy because we can't do any foot cleanup or anything like that. And a lot of Rokoko, again, these sensors, my arm sensor, it has no idea where it is in space, but it knows that, okay, this sensor rotated this much, this sensor rotated this much, this sensor, and what we do is we basically build the mocap up from your feet. And so having good foot contact information is a huge part of Rokoko. And that's why recordings, that's why we always recommend you do a recording. Some of the limitations for Rokoko start showing up when you are live streaming, right? Because you can't do those fixes. And let me show you what I mean here. Let's do a recording. Actually, okay, hold on. Let me take anybody in the chat who wants to see like me push this thing. What do you want to see? I can't do a backflip. I'll do another one. Put in the chat any movements you want to see me do. Let's break this thing. Let me show you how I can break it. Let me lie down on the ground here. And lie down on the ground, you'll see with my feet on the ground versus not. This is a limitation of Rokoko. This is a limitation of Rokoko. Feet on the ground. You see what, you saw what happened when I took those feet up off the ground. It no longer knows that our feet are on the ground and we lose track. So you can lie on the ground, but you just got to keep your feet on the ground. So we can break this thing. We can try and break it, but you like with AI, like with any of them, you need to work within the limitations of the system. So I'll do another calibration pose because it's so easy. That's another thing I'll say in Rokoko's favor. Our calibration pose is a lot easier than a lot of the other ones. Here we go, recording time. Let's go for it. Whoa, it's a puppy. Okay, good job, Bachi. Let's pause it. Excuse me. Excuse me. Dad's doing his weird stuff again. So here we go. Another thing that's awesome about Rokoko. Not only was it real time, although with those limitations we discussed, right? With the limitation of the foot contact data not being processed, so you might get sliding, you might get more drift on live, but it is live. No live on AI, no live on most volume, but I get the take right here. I get the take immediately. I can already tell if this is going to be good or not. I don't have to wait. And look, I bet that, hold on, did we just see some problems? Because now we get to go in and fix typical problems. Okay, here we go. Look at this. So I don't have my mouse. Can I transfer my mouse? I want to use my mouse. Okay, I'm going to have to use the trackpad. And I'm going to have to shrink. Hold on. Let's move me. Okay, and you can see down here we have all the foot contacts with the ground, right? So let's go and let's check out this jump. First of all, let's look at the raw. Let's look at the raw take. See what we got and what we didn't get. A lot of it looked good. That jump looked weird that we saw in the beginning. Come on, baby, look at this. It looks so good. Doubters out there. You can see no foot sliding because, again, when these circles are opaque, that means feet don't move. We're basically telling the program, hey, in case you didn't get it right the first time, which it didn't on this jump that we're going to see again at the beginning of this clip that we're about to fix, hey, you misinterpreted where that foot contact was right there. Let's fix that. Okay, so how do we fix that? You know, this is a pretty typical workflow with Rokoko. You go in, you zoom in. Okay, so I know my right foot should still be on the ground. My left foot shouldn't. It thinks that my left foot went on the ground for some reason. My right foot was on the ground until here. Look at the difference. Oh my. Oh no, the audio finally. My headphones died. So I'm going to turn off the audio. But look at this. Fixed. I mean, great, you know? Absolutely great. Hey, I don't want to be following anymore. I want to zoom out. I want to give an honest look at this. Let's look at it again. Let's play from the beginning. Come on. So this is what? 10 seconds of editing? You know, I can't speak for the actor's stunt chops, but this is great. This is typical performance. This is what you should expect. And you don't have to worry about the cameras not picking up the subtlety of your fingers. You don't have to worry about occlusion. Again, you don't have to worry about space. There's some real advantages to the Rokoko workflow, not to mention the fact that now we can add characters. This is I know I said you shouldn't auto rig on Mixamo, but I use Mixamo characters too. I'm not saying don't use Mixamo characters because I can't rig. I just know that sometimes if I want good MOCAP character performance, I buy a character that's properly rigged, or I look at the weight painting, but I don't like doing that. But this is a Mixamo character. It takes Unreal characters, pop them in, and then I can slap it onto my MOCAP, and I can even do a little bit of editing on the MOCAP. And, you know, we're continuing to improve this whole system. which again is, as I was saying before about you're buying into a workflow, you're kind of buying into a system, less so a result, right? Because they're all going to get you close-ish. None of them are going to get you the whole way. But what system, our system continues to expand and improve. And so I think that, I don't know where I was. I lost my train of thought. But look, we got a character. How awesome is this? And then, forget about recorded clips, baby. You think that that's not for... Oh, we gotta... Hello. Whip fast. We're going to be adding facial motion capture ability to this as well. And look, here you have the problem. I was actually just looking at a bunch of comments on YouTube earlier today, and they were complaining. They were saying, Rokoko has bad mocap. Look at the retargeted characters' hands going through their limbs. And that's because look at our hands are different. You can't tell from this angle, but she is like way bigger. And so you're always going to have some of those issues. It looks really good though. But even if we do have these issues, look at what we can do here. We added in some tools that you can do pose correction. So retargeting options, look at this. Another common issue with retargeting in MOCAP is, let me see if I can show it, is shoulders being too high or too far back. So there we go. That usually looks a little bit more realistic. I like to shift the shoulders forward a little bit. So let's say okay, my hand is on my thigh. Well, I don't know if this is going to be the best option, but you can do some limited mocap here where it adjusts the arm spread. So there's something similar to this on Mixamo, where you can change the offset, right? So maybe if I have some clipping issues with grenades on my belt, single core studios, that can be a problem. I find that the best way to do that, usually what fixes that, is just checking out the points at which the foot contact ends. Sometimes if you just move it a little bit, it can have a really big difference. Usually I scoot the end of the clips. If there's knee popping, I either scoot them a little bit back or a little bit forward, the in and out points of where the foot lifts off from the ground. But physics filter will help this. I think that this problem this used to be a huge problem, single core. And again, I'm not here, let's be honest, there are limitations to Rokoko. This used to be a really big problem. I think it's less so now with some of the magnetic interference. For the Smart Suit Pro 2, the magnetic interference update we did, I think, helped with that. I think I've thought it's been getting better, but that would be my solution to try and fix that. Just walking, and I totally know what they're talking about. Can we? Yeah, you can see some of that popping. Another thing that I can do sometimes is maybe just adjust. Let's try and do a take. Let's do a take. Let's do some walk-in takes and see. Because there probably will be a little popping. See if we can get a clean one. Yeah, we'll keep her. Let's keep her on there. Yeah, so I think Yeah, there's definitely popping in here. So one thing I would try is, try that. Oh, knee pop smoothing is already on. Okay. Yeah, then I would go in and basically I would play with the foot contact tracks. But yeah, I mean, again, this is performance that I get pretty much every day. This is indicative of the performance, and I think, ironically, walking is one of the hardest things for the suit to get. It does so well, even with like standard walking is one of the hardest things for the suit to get, right? Because if you're walking like, if you're walking more like that, it tends to do a better job. So, yeah, valid point. Can be a limitation for sure. I would try playing with those. And I would also try wearing shoes. Sometimes I find that the way that I walk, I'm wearing socks, and that can get kind of affected. See, like that looks like amazing. But but I feel you. Walking normally can be a little bit weird. Look at that. Ooh. See, that's something that we could... Look at that thing. See, this is... Sometimes you'll get glitchies like this. This might be unfixable, but sometimes these things can just be fixed by just moving and letting it reprocess. See? Fixed it. Just need to sometimes even just touching the bar will help, right? Okay, so before we, this is pretty much the demo. We're not doing live streaming today, but we do have all these live streaming options. You can live stream out to Unreal or whatever it is. But I will put on this guy, and we'll show you a little of this action. So I haven't, excuse me, watch out, Bachi. Excuse me. Sorry, puppy. Oh, you gotta move. Okay, good girl. I haven't put, this is a prototype, so I have not, there's no Velcro on the back of the unit, but that's where there will be a Velcro piece that basically where your head sensor attaches. But this is an awesome unit. I don't know, for whatever reason, there is like no affordable option for this kind of thing on the market, and there really has never been. So this is pre-order for $200. I think the price will go up a little bit. I'm not sure by how much, but I think the next price up is $600, which is a lot of money for something that, again, you can totally use a bicycle helmet. For years, I used a bicycle helmet and a selfie stick zip tied to the bicycle helmet. It just was not very reliable, and it didn't look good handing it to talent. It wasn't very impressive. Okay, so let me go on to face capture. I just opened up the Rokoko app. So we're using the Rokoko app. I also use this thing for MetaHuman Animator, and it's crazy. But you can see as soon as I opened up the app, we got this prompt here. I can connect. I get a prompt on here, allow. Then we just add, and it's not going to show up on my character, of course, but it will show up on me. Wait, hold on. So this thing is awesome. It's lightweight, right? I can clamp it in the back, and you can see inertial motion capture. It's not touching the right point. That's to be expected. That's the trade-off. But yeah, looks great. And again, this works super well for MetaHuman Animator. It works for iClone. The mount, we have workflows using our app, right? We have our solution, and it's nice that this is all one package, right? It's nice that this is all synced. I get, when I export this, they're synced up, my motions, my facial mocap, and my body mocap. But you can use it with any of the other apps, and you can combine the data in post, and it's just a really cool tool. So I love this thing. I just think it's such a great. So I've been looking for this solution in my own workflows for years, and I don't know why it's like $1,200 for some of these solutions. I'm sure I want a standard deviation helmet. Again, Matt Workman channel, if you want to know what I'm talking about. Looks beautiful, but I don't have $1,200 to spend. Jeez Louise. And Plot Coalition saying foot contact is important, but also, you need to work within the limitations of the tool. For Move.ai, Move 1, that means not showing the fingers when you have bad finger mocap, or never turning away from the camera, right? Because you will have occlusion. The camera won't be able to see what you're doing, so you have to face the camera the whole time. For Rokoko, if I think, again, you can get good walking content, but walking has been a tough thing for us in the past. Maybe you frame out the feet a little bit. Like, you do need, there are limitations. And again, I've tried to be really clear during this live stream. There are limitations to Rokoko. I just believe those limitations are worth it relative to the limitations in the other tools. And that's just for me. That does not go for everyone else. Everyone else needs to think about their own workflows, their own process, and then what makes sense for them. Because what makes sense for me in CG, I can guarantee you, is not going to make sense necessarily for you. There is no one size fits all solution. So there you go. That's some Rokoko mocap. We'll do one more demo, jumping around, one more recording with it on, and then we're gonna call it. And thank you for sticking with me, everyone. I know this was quite a ramble from old Sam. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5. Still tracking me, even if I'm over here. Yeah. Rock solid, baby. Looks pretty good to me. Oh, I love this head rig. It's so great. Look at this. And let's try in here, the jumping section. See, it's still... zoom in. Look at that. I mean, that is just so awesome. Cannot do that standing in front of a tripod. Legit. Well, thank you all for bearing with me. Hopefully you found this useful. If you stuck around this long, please, come back, hang out. Ask me, come back to one where we're having some fun and we're making something, because this stuff is a blast. And I got quite passionate, I think, during this live stream, and that's because I am a member of this community too. You know, I work for Rokoko, but I watch all the same tutorials that you guys do, you guys and gals do. You know, I'm there too. So it really matters to me that people can see the potential in some of these tools, even if it's not Rokoko. I do think motion capture in general, for all of the companies, it's more accessible than ever. It's more of an option than ever. And it allows a generalist like myself, or a bigger company that needs to do previs, whatever, an animator, but it allows you to be more creative. And that's the thing I love the most about motion capture, is that it lets me overcome a major obstacle in my skill set, that I never will be able to do character animation. I don't care to, and I won't. And it lets me have access to that, and it lets me do storytelling, and especially for characters. You know, it's one of the things that, whether you're working in CG films or game dev or MoGraph even, the way that characters move is usually so essential to telling a story. The way that they hit a button, the way that they react, the way that they sit with information that you've given them, or that the audience understands about them. There's such emotion that you can capture with all of these tools, and it's easier than ever, and that's really exciting. So I'm gonna leave it off on a fun note, and yeah. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for joining, everyone. I'll see you out there. Maybe I'll see you on the Discord. Peace out. Bye.